Okay, well, thank you for joining and welcome everyone. I'm Keith Stout, Chief Product Officer at Bursting Silver. Our goal of this webinar series is to provide you with real-world examples of not-for-profits using artificial intelligence as told directly to you from the organization itself. Today we have three very different examples from three different types of organizations: a union, a regulatory body, and a member association. Ideally, you'll walk away with new ideas and inspiration to try some of these at your organization. I should add, we at Bursting Silver are here to help you with your AI initiatives. Why is the focus on actual AI implementation important, and why is highlighting working examples important? Well, there are tons of hype around AI these days, but very little practical applications that yield significant results in either staff productivity or increased member engagement and retention. Everybody's talking about AI, but very few not-for-profits have deployed it and seen results. And even this language I'm using, member retention, protecting member data, engagement, these are unique to member-based organizations. Most of the AI solutions on the market are geared towards the for-profit world. One key difference not-for-profits have are huge obligations and often regulations and laws on how their member data is handled, and most AI tools are not inherently built to address these. Helping member-driven organizations use technology is what we do at Bursting Silver. To that end, we have several great speakers from not-for-profits using AI that are here to present to you. First, we have Dawn Lipop of the Toronto Police Association. Dawn found herself using AI during a very time-sensitive labor negotiation involving hundreds of millions of dollars, needing to process a large amount of information quickly. Next, we'll have Brian Buss and Patrick Mason at the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba join us, who are using artificial intelligence to greatly increase the efficiency of staff handling some of their most sensitive member data. Then we'll talk to Michelle Morgan of the IMUS Users Group, who is able to boost member retention and engagement by using AI to introduce a completely new AI member service. That's our structure. We'll be spending up to 10 minutes on each one, and then we will be taking questions from the audience at the end of our discussions. So stick around for that. If you have any questions, please submit those through the Q&A area in the Teams webinar tool you're seeing me through. Lastly, if you're using AI at your organization, we'd love to learn about that and possibly feature it in a future webinar where others can learn from you. That's what we're trying to create here through these webinars. At Bursting Silver, we are here to help you navigate your AI journey. Beyond this webinar, we have a series of white papers on our website, our AI Impact series, as well as our AI Smart Start, our offering to help you move forward with AI. We'll talk more about those a little bit later. But first, I would like to invite and thank Dawn Lipop. Dawn, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us. Dawn is the Chief Administrative Officer at the Toronto Police Association. So Dawn, what I found most compelling about your use of AI and your story isn't the tool so much, or even the problem you solved with it. To me, it's the human side of things, the situation you found yourself in. You were in a very intense labor negotiation on behalf of your members, where the result of a failed negotiation could be a strike. Before we talk about AI, could you share a bit about the situation you were in?
Sure. So just a little bit of background. We represent over 8,500 members that are both civilian and uniform. So anywhere from a police officer to a 911 call taker to mechanics. And part of, the main mandate of our organization is to negotiate the salaries, benefits, and working conditions of those 8,500 plus people. We were in negotiations in 2024 and they failed. We ended up in arbitration and were given a 1-year award and then headed straight back into negotiations in 2025. leading into those negotiations, we wanted to make sure we had our priorities straight as any other member organization or association. And just one point of clarification, we're not actually allowed to strike. We can only take job action because we're an essential service, but that can have a really big impact if we don't get negotiations, and if our members are unhappy enough that they start job action, that can really impact the citizens of Toronto and the city of Toronto. So yeah, the stakes are pretty high when it comes to negotiations. And like I said, it's the main mandate of our organization. We wanted to make sure that we got it right and that we identified the priorities of our members correctly. So we, as we have done in the past, we issued a member survey and collected a lot of information. So out of our 8,500 members, we had almost 2,000 members submit responses for the surveys. And ultimately, what we ended up with was a lot of information. The survey software could summarize a lot of the data for us, but we had 9 questions that had free text options. So members were allowed to provide free text information to us with comments up to, I think it was like 4,000 characters. So we ended up with 122 pages of free text information. And so that was a lot of information for us to try to go through, with weeks leading up to our negotiations.
So it sounds like a pretty pressure-filled environment and limited resources and very high stakes for you. And parsing through 122 pages of free text information from members is not something you can just sit down and go through quickly. So I'm sure the idea of AI popped into your head because I know you're on top of these things. What prevented you from just taking that 122 pages of free text and dumping it into ChatGPT and then just interrogating that data over there? Were there any reason you didn't just go with that route?
Yeah, even you describing that is giving me a little bit of heart palpitations. We're really careful about the information that we put into AI. So yeah, when we looked at the free text forms, we did notice or free text answers, excuse me, we did notice that some of our members had put in names, for example, I don't like the sergeant or whatever. Not that our members were saying that, but there was some names. There was even identifying information for us as the Toronto Police Association. So we had a staff member that went through all 122 pages and reviewed it for any names and deleted all of the names. Even any reference to Toronto Police Association was removed from those 122 pages.
So that was a time-consuming exercise, and you just had one person do that. It must have taken them quite a few hours or quite a few days. Do you remember what that effort looked like?
It did. It was more than a day for them to do it. But once they were done, we were really confident. We did a few tests. You can use the Control F feature, and so we tried that out, and we were really confident that the information was clean.
And even if they said, "I really like that sergeant," or "I really like that director," you decided
we
to
still
take that
deleted
out?
it.
Okay, all right. Well, I like to think positive.
I like that too. I like that.
Okay, so then once you had this completely cleaned of any member information or TPA information, then you felt safe and you chose to use ChatGPT. And was it literally you just uploaded the file then to ChatGPT that was now cleansed of all the member data?
That's exactly what we did. We did separate the document into the 9 questions. We wanted to make sure that ChatGPT didn't get confused about the answers to one question or another. So we fed ChatGPT 9 documents, and then we asked it to analyze it for us. And what it provided for each individual question was an overall tone. So, the topic that we were asking about, were members happy about it? Were they frustrated? Were they feeling confident? Were they feeling insecure? So it gave us an overall tone. It highlighted themes and frequent comments for us. So if there was something that was coming up repeatedly in the comments from our members, we were seeing that in the results that Chat gave us. Where possible, Chat even provided us with like bar charts so that we could visually see which comments were coming up most frequently in the free text questions that were being answered. It even provided us with like recommendations and action items that we could use. And that was kind of, we weren't really, the initial intent wasn't for it to provide that, but when Chat came out and said, "Hey, do you want some recommendations?" we thought, sure, we'll see what it provides. And it actually provided some really good recommendations that made it into some of our final documents. So we were really happy with the results.
Wow. Okay, that's beyond even what I thought it would do. So I know you can't give specifics, but it actually made recommendations on like how to position your negotiation bargaining position or something along those lines?
It was actually more about when our members were commenting on something that was a problem or an issue, it made comments about how that issue could be resolved, which then we could take that suggested resolution to the employer that we were negotiating with and say, our members have identified this as an issue, and we've got 3 potential resolutions, and out of those 3 potential resolutions, some of them were actually generated through ChatGPT.
Wow, so AI became your secret weapon in your negotiations here. Hopefully your counterpart at the negotiation table isn't watching this webinar and learning all your secrets for next time. So really impressive results, and you could kind of take the qualitative data you had to make it a bit more quantitative and present it. I believe when we were talking earlier, you shared that even the amount of times that maybe your board or other constituents were asking you to go back and crunch more data and bring it back to them, that sort of iteration reduced as well?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, the way that we have done surveys in the past, and we've had free text forms in the past, and one of the big challenges with the free text answers is that we would have to have somebody literally manually go through each free text answer and decide whether or not it fit into certain categories, try to group it so that we could, manually see what themes were there, whatever. And the difficulty in that is that if we, presented that in one of our board meetings and a question came up, we may have to go back and dig through that information. Being able to do that with ChatGPT so much easier. But because of the reality was that because Chat had done such a good job for us, we didn't actually have to go back and reanalyze the data. It had provided all the answers to the questions for our board on the first, run.
So it sounds like it saved you a lot of time to be able to actually focus on negotiation, not crunch data. So that's, an amazing use case right there of helping you be productive and better at representing your members. Fantastic.
Yeah, to be really clear, it was like weeks. It saved us one person working weeks on free text, analyzing free text information.
Amazing. And then I'm guessing next time you go to negotiation, you would think about using AI again. Maybe it's too early about that, but have you given any thoughts to expanding upon it? How to use it next time even more?
Yeah, our negotiations, this contract was 5 years, a 5-year contract. So we're not anticipating going back into negotiations or preparing for negotiations for another 3.5, 4 years. But absolutely, we would do this again. Who knows what the AI can do 4 years from now? But we're definitely open.
Fantastic. Well, I have maybe one more question I have for you, but then we have to keep moving here. I know you've talked about doing other things with AI at TPA, maybe creating some assistance to help specific staff of your organization in their job role. Are you able to share kind of where your mind is going to with next steps with AI? Maybe I know the next negotiations isn't for quite a few years, but in the meantime, now that you've kind of whet your appetite with it, are you looking to do more?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've said, we get heart palpitations, and the stuff that keeps us up at night is about keeping our information secure. So we're pretty cautious, but we're really excited about internally using it. We've already developed 2 AI assistants that we're refining to make them better, that are to help our staff so that our staff can attend to more of those needs that really require human touch, and then using the AI assistants to generate, answers to topics. For example, we've got an insurance department, and they've got an assistant that can help give them information pretty quickly about some of the content in our insurance programs. We have further goals beyond that, but yeah, we're just we still feel like we're testing the waters, but we're really excited about leveraging AI.
Yeah, I would say you are. I'd even say you're a bit ahead of the curve. A lot of organizations that we've been talking to are sort of very early in their even just like you said, dipping their toe in the water. So congrats to you, and we look forward to seeing where you go with this next. Thank you, Dot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And we were scheduled to go to Patrick and Brian next, but I know Patrick's had some connectivity issues. Is there any updates there, Riley, on Patrick's being able to join us? Or
I believe Patrick's in here.
Hey. Yeah. No way. Okay, I couldn't see you, and I know you're having some challenges before.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick. Awesome. Okay, well, now we're going to put you on the spot, Patrick, and make you do some talking. Hope you're okay with that. Yeah. I'd like to introduce Brian Buss, Chief Financial Officer at the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba, and Patrick Mason, who's serving as their fractional Chief Information Officer. Patrick has helped a number of clients we work with develop their IT strategy, including AI implementation, as we'll learn now. Gentlemen, Patrick, let me start with you. As CIO at the organization, you know you have to implement artificial intelligence. After all, it is 2025. But you also know protecting member data is crucial to the college's mandate. How did you approach the situation?
Well, I guess the first use of it was really a little bit by surprise. I use AI in my own practice all the time, all day, every day, in a number of different places. And I was at a meeting with the head of conduct, and she was looking at it, and a number of folks were looking at my AI note taker and inquired what it was, and I talked to them a little bit about it and how it worked. And she said, we could really use that in conduct. So conduct, for those that don't know, is where a complaint would come in about a nurse. So if a nurse did something that a member of the public complained about, it goes to conduct. And these things can be anything from minor, she said something nasty about my kid's outfit, right to very serious. And so the information in conduct is super private, super confidential. It's probably some of the most sensitive stuff we deal with, and it can end up in court. So privacy and confidentiality is paramount. So the use case, what you brought forward was there's a ton of interviewing in conduct, and interviews can be 5, 6, 7 hours, and you can imagine transcribing those notes faithfully takes a ton of time. And so what we did was we piloted using AI to be the note taker and transcriber. And in fairly short order after the pilot, we realized that it was going to be a huge time saver. I don't know, I guess, Brian, you know some of the numbers as well, but I think we probably cut some of the transcription time in half. So 8-hour interview, 4 or 5 hours to transcribe now becomes 1 or 2. And if you do that 3 or 4 times a week, you can see the savings are significant.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, let me ask Brian what your impression was and what your response was. Patrick came to you and proposed that you use artificial intelligence for these meeting transcriptions, and as he just described, some of the most confidential data you have at the college, promising it could be a huge productivity boost, but obviously there's risk here. That's hypersensitive data. How did you feel about his proposal from a risk and reward perspective?
When Patrick and I discuss projects, we often open it up with the high-level principles of what's the impact on the people involved, the process, and the timeline for implementation. I think, like many organizations today, the rapidly changing environment is requiring us to respond, and that's limiting staff availability to make major investments in process changes or initiatives. So when Patrick and I talked about this, and the message was we can do this likely with minimal staff investment upfront in implementing the change, and also we can still maintain our privacy controls and security controls. I was cautiously optimistic, which is probably the highest level of excitement you can get from an accountant.
Brilliant. And then did you think of this as an IT project like any other IT project, or is the fact that this is now AI? Like, did the AI factor in this make you consider this or approach this or feel differently about this than if he came to you and said, hey, we're going to upgrade Microsoft Word? Obviously that would be low risk, but anything along those lines, new LMS, did AI change any of your thinking about how you would approach this as a project?
Well, I think at a high level, AI initiatives, they need to be supported by the same project and change management principles and strategies you'd use for any successful initiative. But early on with this specific initiative, we did recognize that AI, by its nature and the way it operates, it does have unique privacy and governance risks, which we needed to consider in our planning. Just in relation to the governance risks, it's really about maintaining control for the accountability and outputs. Unlike other software tools which we've used in the past, the programming logic for AI is not easily auditable or verifiable.
That's
So
right.
you need to ensure that you have mitigating controls and policies and procedures in place to ensure the accuracy of the outputs, and that staff understand that they really retain the ultimate responsibility for the outputs of the AI tool that they're using. From a privacy perspective, the use of an AI tool really is sharing data with a third party. That can be small amounts of data to large amounts of data, depending on how you're implementing, which tool you're using. So we really wanted to ensure that we're put an emphasis during the implementation and planning phase on understanding what data was being shared and where and how that data was being stored from a security perspective, and ensuring it was aligned with our privacy policies and our security policies.
Wow, a lot to consider there. Rolling out, I guess as Patrick said, he was just using it, but when you're rolling it out at a registered health regulatory body, there's so much to consider there. It sounds like you covered all that. So Patrick, you had this idea and you worked very closely with Brian to make sure everything was structured as he just described in a way that's going to lead to success. So you had that kind of go ahead to proceed with this. How did you go about choosing a tool, and how did you roll it out, and how hard was it to roll out?
Well, so I worked once Brian and I decide on a project and we say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Then I sort of have access to Brian's staff, as it were. And so there's several folks on Brian's team who we use to look at. So for privacy, it was data residency. So we're going to put some sensitive data in. Where is it going? Who's seeing it? How far is it traveling out onto the web? And how's it coming back to us? And that was one particular staff person who's a whiz at contracts. So we had to go to the very, very bottom of our Microsoft contracts, including our Azure container, data residency, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that we could say exactly where this information was going. That was actually probably the most time-consuming part of the project, because the use case was really fairly simple from an IT perspective, transcribe notes. We actually found that we had a licensing structure with Microsoft and Azure where we could actually enable that option in, I guess it would be Teams. And so it was the nearest AI available to us. It was the most cost effective. And we did it on a pilot basis, and it did the trick. So after probably about 8 weeks of really just contract work and confirming data residency, privacy, security, we chose the near AI to us, Teams. We augmented our license a little bit, did a pilot, and then on using the pilot results to guide us, we moved forward. We got a 5-star review on the pilot, and so the head of conduct has agreed to allow us to roll that out to the rest of our team now.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, quite a few elements there. And key to that was the data residency in Canada. Was that hard to specifically set up?
It wasn't so much to set up, it was to confirm. So to Brian's point, we had to make sure that what we were doing was in alignment with the rest of our policy and privacy approaches. So all of our data has to abide by those policies. And so this was no different. But we had to stand it up against that. And because AI does work a little differently with the large language models, the back end of AI can be global or it can be local. And so it was more an issue of just confirming that at an audit type level, that we knew where this information was going. And it's just the complexity of Microsoft contracts. It took us a while to work through. The deployment of the technology was sort of checking a box and saying it's live. And because we knew it was secure, we still did it with pilot data, but the pilot took very little time, because as soon as staff started seeing the results, they got very excited, because they were saving a fair bit of time immediately. And actually the benefits compounded, because they immediately started giving us examples of other things that could be done with this. A simple example would be training new staff, rather than having new staff sit in on live interviews, for example. They could review these canned interviews and use them as training and teachable moments because of the way that the AI recorded the sessions and provided the transcription.
So it sounds like rolling it out to the users and them adopting it was actually a piece of cake. That was probably the easiest part of the whole project.
Downhill, yes, very, very easy, very, very quick, because the benefits were almost immediate and very self-evident.
Cool. Well, amazing. I feel like I could ask you a dozen more questions, but we do want to move on here. Got other speakers and other things to cover. So thanks again, Patrick and Brian. You know, Patrick and Brian and Don have been talking about using AI safely at their organizations and how that's really key for not-for-profits before they dip their toe into AI to make sure they're doing that. And it highlights the need for not-for-profits to use AI safely while boosting productivity and protecting member data. ChatGPT just really isn't an option for most of our customers. That's what we're finding for some of the reasons that we've already had our speakers talk to. If you just turn that loose on your staff, it's just too easy for them to receive an email from a member with an inquiry. They copy and paste that email into ChatGPT or one of the other offerings and ask them for help responding to it. Yes, it'll give them a productivity boost, but what's happened in the meantime? All that member data, maybe their email address, member ID, all sorts of information, what they're asking about, has been sent over to one of these big tech companies into the cloud. And I think as we learned over time, I'm thinking of Facebook in particular, but so many different big tech companies start out with a promise that they're not ever going to sell or use your data for anything, and then just turn around. And when it's convenient for them, they say, well, we've changed our policy and now we are, and there you go. So I think we're wise to be pretty cautious about just trusting these companies with member data. The other challenge you have with staff using ChatGPT is that it doesn't know anything about you. So it doesn't know what your mandate is as an organization, what your policies are, what the terminology is in your industry, or the tone and writing style you take in communication out to your members, onto your website, in your newsletters, what the different acronyms mean. It doesn't really even know what the job function is of that staff who's using it. So long story short, aside from that data getting out into the big tech world, the responses you get back aren't going to be really tailored. They'll be kind of dumb and tone deaf. So the way we're trying to help our clients is to give them the ability to use, get all the advantages of something like ChatGPT, but in a way that's safe. Our offering is called Saphion. And what it does is it's actually going to give the same sort of interface that ChatGPT has. But before it leaves your office or your infrastructure, it will tokenize any of the PII information it encounters, so that by the time it then uses one of the tech giants to do the large language model processing, the information that's getting out is actually none of your member data. So that gives your staff the ability to take advantage of AI and these large language model capabilities without actually having any of the member data leave could be an actual box in your office running the software, or your infrastructure at Microsoft Azure or AWS, wherever you want that. So that's one of the ways we're trying to help our clients boost productivity, do more with less, but while making sure all that member data is kept safe and you're compliant. And the other kind of pillar of this offering that we're putting together is the ability for your staff to have different assistants. And so that would be different staff in your organization in different roles have the ability to use their training material and their job function. Sorry, CJ, could you skip to the next slide? There'll be a lot more. Yeah, there we go. So we have different people in different functions at your organization who can actually spin up their own assistants that will help them, and that assistant would know about their job, their role, and maybe different training materials that they use at their job regularly. So if someone's the event manager, they could create an assistant that's aware of their different events and their refund policies and the different options. And so when they get an inquiry about that, they can post it to that assistant. That assistant will give them a response back, the whole while protecting that member data with the redaction we just talked about, and allow that event manager to respond in a very timely fashion, what might have taken minutes to respond down to seconds, and so forth. So that's one of the things we're excited about. We're going to be launching that this summer. So if anybody has any interest, please just reach out. You can find out more on our website. And one of the ways we decided to build this was through our interactions with our next speaker, who is Michelle Morgan from the IMAS Users Group. Michelle, welcome. Are you here? Oh, you're muted. I don't know if you said hello.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks
Maybe
for
you said
having
hello
me.
and you're muted. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Michelle Morgan is the Executive Director of the IMAS Users Group, IUG. IUG is the largest independent, not-for-profit IMUS users group, and it helps its members thrive with IMUS. For those that don't know, IMUS is software used by thousands of not-for-profits around the world. Michelle, IUG has launched a new chatbot called iMind. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, thanks, Keith. So we're really excited about iMind. It's our new members-only chatbot. We wanted to be able to tap into the collective brain power of the IMUS users group because we have about 4,500 individual members, active members, and about 450 company members. So by using our existing member community, we have collected just a ton of information that we have been able to take that information, and we wanted to repurpose it and make it easier and quicker to find answers to their IMUS questions. So we have built iMind basically to make that knowledge accessible 24/7. It helps our members to get quick answers, best practices in some cases, and just feel more empowered to use and understand IMUS. So we had designed it as the ultimate navigator within the IMUS ecosystem.
Right. So just so I'm clear, I'm clear, but just so everyone's clear, iMind is essentially a chatbot on the IUG website, and it's a members-only benefit, and it is really there to help the members get answers about IMUS quickly instead of relying on the forum that they might have before or going through documents. Okay, fantastic.
Right.
And just taking a step back, what made you want to do this in the first place? What were sort of some of your thinking around, your vision about that brought this to fruition?
I think, quite honestly, it started with the key realization that we were sitting on this gold mine of IMUS data that we have been collecting for years, and it was our members asking questions and other members answering their questions. So being able to provide them with information about IMUS and how to do these more advanced things you won't find within documentation, is why we wanted to put it in place to begin with. We also saw a dip in our membership renewals. So especially since COVID, in some cases it was up because we were doing other things that were just easier to access for them. But in some cases, we were having a hard time with membership renewals. So we needed to step up our value game. So I asked myself basically what would get people more engaged and basically make their jobs easier, give them a reason to stick around, right? So the answer was this chatbot because obviously I'm a bit of a AI geek myself. And in discussing things with you, we decided that might be a great use of all of that content that we already have existing. And then finally, we have a great online community and people are still utilizing it. In fact, even though we have the chatbot in place, I've noticed how much of an increase we have in usage, even on our online community. People are still asking questions. We obviously need to get more marketing out there about the chatbot and just kind of refresh their minds, knowing that it's there. But it's, in some cases, for the more super advanced questions that people are asking, it's getting them like 98% there. And maybe they still have one little bit that they need answered. So the chatbot is definitely saving a ton of time and frustration for people to be able to do what they need to with IMUS.
That's fantastic. And I think, you mentioned it's good for advanced use cases. And I think, sometimes we forget, there's lots of documentation out there on how to use this software or any other software. But what you have when you have a user forum with so many people for so many years is how do I'm in this specific situation, I have this really unique problem, I don't know how to solve it. And you get 3 or 4 different people giving their ideas to it, that's not ever included in the documentation from the provider. So you are, and many associations be sitting on, like you said, a gold mine of rich information that an AI can tap into and expose your members through very, very easy and convenient interface like you've done. So you had this vision, you had this rich data. How hard was it to actually get the chatbot from your imagination onto your website?
Well, there's a lot I could say about the incredible amount of work that it had occurred for us, but we only have 2 staff, so obviously that was going to be a pain point for us. But full transparency, Keith and Bursting Silver in general is our IMIS solution provider. So I basically came to you in full transparency to everyone on the call. I came to you and I had this idea and I thought, what can we do with all this content and how can we further help IMIS users to save time and money, because we all know associations just don't have enough time in the day to get everything done. So I came to you and just talked about my love of AI and things that we might be able to do with it. And this is what we came up with. So I leaned on you all a lot.
You called yourself an AI geek and you turned to other AI geeks. That's always a fun solution.
I haven't gotten to the programming part of it yet.
Well, and you can't be master of all trades. I mean, you're running an association,
right.
And you have your membership. Your other reasons you can't become the expert to actually roll it out. I'll give a brief summary. Michelle came to us. There was all that rich data, and there's really just a couple steps involved. We had to extract the information from where the forum was. It was a third-party solution. Extract all that. The nature of these forums, and a lot of the people on this webinar will have forums of their own. Sometimes they also even have this listserv component where people are actually just chatting back and forth through email, answering questions back and forth, corresponding, collaborating. That creates a lot of junk behind the scenes because all the information that's included there can be like email signatures and people chit-chatting about different things or jokes. And all of that is not useful or helpful to train an AI. So our exercise was to pull down all that data and go through it and clean it up. We actually used AI to help clean up that data. We used AI to help categorize that data as well. From there, we just chose a technology platform to be the actual AI. And in this case, we used OpenAI and their API, and we could upload it to there. That's where the magic is. That's where the intelligence comes from. Our role is to help get that data organized and structured. Dawn talked about how she also had to get her data structured before she could use it with AI. That's pretty common in these AI projects these days. But once it was up there, we could then, it's a technical exercise to build a little front-end bot that appears on your website. So that was that. Now, you gave us the vision, you gave us access to the information. We walked away, we did our magic, and we came back to you and said, okay, we're done, try it out. And you must have been worried that when you asked it an IMIS question, it would give you a recipe for turkey stew and give you bad answers. How were you feeling at that point, and how did it go?
I was nervous. We basically announced that we were going to be bringing this to our members at our conference, and we gave them a little show at our conference and let them know it's on its way. And before we could even get ours out there, the actual developers of the IMIS product also announced that they were going to have a chatbot within IMIS to help answer questions about IMIS. So, the happy part of this all is that we have data that isn't in documentation. It's only within our community and answers to questions that most likely you won't find in the documentation. So that was the good part of that in rolling it out. So a lot was riding on it.
Cool. Well, I only got a minute left with you, Michelle, but can you just quickly tell us how it's going? You've had it live for a couple months now. How's that going? And from an executive perspective, have you seen any impact on retention or engagement?
We have definitely seen a large increase in our retention. So we did let members know that we're about to lose their membership. Know that this product is now available and you should really check it out. So our membership retention increased about 10%. Our members love it. Basically, I'll even use it in our member community. If someone doesn't answer a question, I'll still go on the chat bot and I'll get an answer.
And
And
they'll think you're
iMind
super
is,
smart, and Imus extremely
yeah,
well, right? That's awesome.
exactly. Oh my God, she's brilliant. Um, so I'll share the information, but I always say it's from iMind, our chat bot. Don't forget it's there. Let me know how this works out. So we are then able to go back and feed that information into the system, and improve what we have existing already.
Wow. Sounds like a huge overall success story. Like everyone else, I think I have a dozen more questions I can ask you, but I got to keep moving. So thank you, Michelle, for joining us. But stick around,
Sure.
everyone. We will have a Q&A session. If there's any of these speakers you want to ask them questions, please put them into the Q&A part of this webinar, and we'll be sure to get to them as much as we can very soon. Actually, we're getting to that time soon. But now let me introduce James Harrison, Senior Advisor at Bursting Silver. Welcome, James.
Keith, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. We've just heard from Michelle and IUG about increasing member retention and engagement with artificial intelligence. I understand that you're part of a team with an AI solution that helps organizations achieve this. Data Scout has an engagement capability. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I certainly can, Keith. So Data Scout is a new AI tool that can work with your existing member management system to give you better insight into your members and help you increase their participation and engagement. It does this by giving you important insight into your members. For example, its enhanced profile combines the data you already have together with what your members post on social media. Immediately, this gives you deeper understanding about them and their personal interests. Another example, creating a targeted email list is a breeze, as Data Scout allows you to easily group members based on their interests and their demographics. This lets you target your communications with your members with more specificity, and even create tailored emails that your members resonate with. Both of these examples will have a big impact on the interaction you get from your members. What I especially like are the tagging and segmentation features. Data Scout will read through your member data and assign tags to each individual that are specific, for example, to them. Now, this could be their interests like photography or the outdoors, or this could be tags related to demographics like their age range, occupation, or location. Adding tags like these manually but with your own staff could take hundreds of hours. Data Scout does all this hard work for you quickly, and it also updates it regularly. With these tags in place, you can create groups, which you can then target personalized emails to. For the outdoor enthusiasts, you can invite them to a festival or outdoor event. For the academics, you could tell them about a training options you have or even offer a discount to them.
Okay, wow, that is a lot of functionality there, and obviously really boosting engagement using AI, as you said, saving staff a tremendous amount of time. What do you like most about this tool?
Next slide, CJ. What I like most about this tool is that I can interact with it using natural language. I don't need to know any special syntax or coding to set an email campaign up or create a list. So for example, in a member's profile, I can say, craft an email to Angela Morgan, inviting them to our conference, and have it highlight how the conference aligns with their interests. Data Scout will draft a personalized email to Angela, and then even open it in my Outlook for me to then finalize and send. If I'm looking to send out to a group of members, I can create an email list simply by asking, find all the members under 30 in Ontario that are interested in the outdoors. Data Scout will create a list of members that I can now send an engagement email to. I can also set up a full campaign entirely using natural language. The configuration settings for all the components of the campaign, like target group, email content, and action instructions, are all prompts created using natural language. This means staff members do not have to have a steep learning curve in order to set up and manage a campaign. Next slide, CJ. One of the features that I also find impressive is that I can craft the system to have an individual response based on a vote or selection they make in the email. For example, I can create a campaign asking members to make a donation. If they click yes, then they get a message with instructions on how to donate. If they click no, then they'll get to a video from our director discussing how important the cause is. In both responses, there's also a chat tool that the member can interact with to ask more questions about our fundraising campaign. This last piece I find very impressive. It allows the member to get answers quickly, and as well, they're sharing their questions and concerns with us. If we look at the example that we see here on the screen, this is a welcome email for a union, and it's sent to a new member that has signed up, and it's asking them, what is the number one thing that you'd like your union to help with? The person's response was, understanding my rights at work. And you can see they have other options they could have chosen. Each one of those options would have had a different result. This one is specific to the one that they chose, and it's giving them some information about grievance support, collective bargaining, and other items. However, this person actually wanted to find out how to contact their union rep. So all they needed to do was actually just type in, where do I find my union rep? Into Data Scout, into the chat tool right there, and immediately they got that information. This is a great example of the additional member engagement Data Scout can provide.
Very, very impressive, James. Hey, thanks for sharing that. There's lots there, lots to digest, and I know there's lots of other capabilities we simply don't have the time to go into today. But if people want to learn more about this, where should they go?
Absolutely. Go to datascout.ai and sign up. If you want, you can test it out. And there's actually a page there where you can have it do your enhanced profile for you if you want to test it out that way. And of course, you can sign up for a demo or more information.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you again, James. Well, we're about to jump into our Q&A portion, so I'll give everyone just a quick minute to go in and type any questions you have. And while we're doing that, I just want to make sure you're all aware of some of the resources available for free to you. Here at Bursting Silver, we're looking to help you in the AI era. First is our AI Impact series. This is a collection of white papers and AI resources, each one tailored to the real challenges member-driven organizations are facing. We've tailored them specifically to the union, association, or regulatory body sectors. From member engagement and retention to licensing workflows and communications, this is a series packed with practical insights and starting points. Whether you're just getting curious or ready to act, this is where you can begin. You can download them for free from our website, burstingsilver.com. Check it out after the session. It's free, it's relevant, and it's built for leaders like you. Our other initiative that we've launched is AI Smart Start. If your organization has been wondering what to do about AI without getting lost in the hype, that's exactly why we created AI Start Smart. It's a focused, under 30-day engagement designed specifically for member-based not-for-profits. We assess your AI readiness, uncover practical use cases, and deliver a clear, low-risk roadmap that aligns with your mission, your members, and your operational reality. Of course, top of mind is always protecting your precious member data, keeping it safe while delivering clarity, confidence, and a plan to move forward with AI. You can learn more at our website. Now let's go and see if we have some questions. I hope everyone's had a chance to put in their Q&A, and we've got about 12 minutes here, and I will go through some of these and ask the other presenters to weigh in as makes sense. So, will this presentation be available to watch or have other people in my company to see? And Riley, I know you're hoping not to talk at all this presentation, but I'm going to throw that at you.
Yes, it will. I was just responding to that too. We'll be sending out a copy of the recording after the webinar here, once it's
Cool.
published by Teams.
Fantastic. Okay, so by email, people can expect the link. That's the plan.
Yes, in your email.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm just going to go through these in order here. Maybe actually I should go in the reverse order. What's the difference between using free ChatGPT and enterprise tools like Microsoft Copilot? So I will open this up to everyone. I mean, initially, right off the bat, with free ChatGPT, they make no commitment to not using your data pretty much any way they see fit, including training their models. So there's zero even promise of protection of privacy. So that's kind of like the worst possible scenario to be in. Patrick, maybe I can throw this to you because you're the one that's experimented with Copilot. What's your take on this question?
Well, I think people are overwhelmed with the number of tools out there now, and the environment or the landscape for AI tools is confusing because a lot of them go back to the same large models. And so sorting out issues like privacy, security, all that kind of stuff becomes the hard part. Using ChatGPT or these models is very simple to get short results, I'll say tactical results. But using it strategically takes a combination of knowledge, professional services, and technical implementation. So it's the complexity of the landscape that I think is stymieing people. Simple tools like Copilot from Microsoft are really good if you're just trying to do something inside Word or add quick designs to PowerPoints or something like that. But if you're trying to do something with a more complicated multi-step kind of process, or you're trying to interact like what James was doing with Data Scout, that kind of deployment takes a little bit more care and consideration. And I think people are shy around stepping into that world because they know that ChatGPT is kind of wide open. And so they're not really sure how to get at some of those higher value use cases, given the complexity of the technical landscape, the privacy landscape, the security landscape. So it's sort of a complicated landscape to navigate. I find that's one of the biggest barriers right now.
Yeah. It is. There's just so many tools and so many options. It is complex. Okay, thank you for that. Next question is, how do I know if AI tool is storing or using my data to train its models? And, I kind of talked about that, when I talked about what we're doing. I don't think, personally, I don't think you can know that because, Facebook and all the rest, they promise one thing and they do the other. That's why we're looking at building out that Saphion offering, which I said, which is don't trust. Keep all the member data in your organization and only send out to those models the things that aren't actually things you'd be worried about sharing. So now, of course, they all have privacy policies. If you do pay for a paid version of ChatGPT or use the OpenAI Responses API, and we keep saying ChatGPT, there's lots out there. There's Claude and Gemini. They're all kind of the same in this regard, in my opinion. They have their policies, and like ChatGPT will promise not to store your data or use it for training. They do retain it for 30 days for troubleshooting purposes. So if you believe that, maybe that's your level of confidence. But there is no way to know what they're doing. That's my take. I don't know if any other speakers want to weigh in on that one. Okay, well, we can just keep going. How do I evaluate if AI is actually saving time or making a measurable impact? Maybe back to you, Brian and Patrick. I think you threw out some numbers, or just maybe how do you think about this from a higher level perspective? If you are going to do an AI initiative, like any IT project, how do you measure whether it's successful or not?
Well, I'll jump in. So what we did was we set up, like any project, we just said, what does success look like? In this case, it was pretty clear. We took a metric of how much time people were spending doing a task before, and then we took the same metric after based on their reported results. And we said, hey, that's a lot better. So we set up the parameters for, what does success look like before we started? And then we just looked back and said, did we get there or didn't we?
Is that like you're asking the actual users to give you an estimate of how much time they've saved? You're not measuring it in any other, like you don't have time watches or anything, stopwatches or anything like that recording this?
It was so dramatic. It was 30-40% or something. It was quite dramatic, and so it was user reported. But what was interesting about it was they reported a whole bunch of other benefits we hadn't even considered. So we knew why we had started, but it's quickly evolving into a program. The head of conduct and I have already sat down. Brian and I are already batting back and forth, full rollouts for much, much more. But even with our experience, we know that we're probably going to have to start looking at different tools, because what we're trying to do is get into the more complicated functions, which means kind of a little bit like what you're showing with Saphion. We're going to need to train an AI on what our folks do. And that's where things like ChatGPT and Copilot start hitting the wall, because it's difficult to train them. They're not really tuned for that level of sophistication. So we're going to have to go up the proverbial food chain into the more complex tools and more kind of care around how we deploy. So they're becoming little mini projects, but just based on the value that they're generating for really fairly low cost, we kind of have to. It would be crazy for us to ignore the potential benefits.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. We have some more questions that have come in. So I have heard that if you use MS Copilot for your job, that data is specific to you and doesn't go outside your org. Is that correct? I guess that's maybe an easy one for you to answer, Patrick, based on your experience.
Yeah, so it really depends on how you're licensed with Microsoft, but in a nutshell, if your organization has a broad contract with Microsoft to create a bucket in the sky, so Microsoft brand is called Azure, if that bucket is licensed to you, then it does stay inside that bucket. The issue is that in our case, for example, that would suggest that in the real world, anybody could walk into anybody's office, open their file cabinet, and start looking through the files. You probably don't operate that way, but in AI world, you do, unless you take some special steps to put up some barriers between your stuff and everybody else's stuff in the organization. So that's the stage we are at. So it isn't sort of you flip a switch and Copilot's on and it's great. You have to take a bit more care than that.
So you have to be very deliberate rolling it out. Okay, cool. I just wanted to turn back to Michelle. I was hoping to ask you this question. We ran out of time, but you've rolled out a. Hope you're still there. Yeah, great, thanks. You've rolled out a chatbot to your members, and your members go and ask questions. And AI is pretty amazing. It's not always 100% accurate. And what if your bot gives your member terrible advice and says, well, the answer to that is to delete your entire database or whatever, do something ridiculously stupid. How do you warn your members about that? But how do you protect yourself as an organization, from even a legal perspective? Because it tells them to go jump off a bridge, and they do. What happens to you?
Let's hope that doesn't happen. But regardless of what we have set up. So basically what we did is we looked into utilizing a form for them to fill out before they can even use it. So it checks to see if they're a member. It offers up the form. They need to answer the questions, look at the language, and specifically we say in there, please keep in mind that ChatGPT or OpenAI is not always 100% correct. You need to check the facts and make sure you test this on like a test version of IMIS or something before you actually implement it. So always keep that in mind. The other thing that you also need to do is make sure that you have in your forms, because in our case, we can submit images. So if they want to do like a step-by-step of what they're trying to do, they can do that and take images, but they need to strip out the personal data before they actually put the form into or the image into our chatbot to try and get their answers. So you just have to make sure legally you cover the organization from lawsuits that could potentially happen.
So even if a member wants to use it, they still have to go through a form that has the waiver, has the link to all the things, and they swear if it tells them to jump off a bridge, they won't. And then that's the legal side of things. And then on the instructional side, you guide them, like, do not upload any, like I said, PAI and images that show things that shouldn't. Okay.
Right. They can't go any further until they review that document and sign their name electronically before they proceed into the chatbot.
I would say that's a best practice for anyone rolling out AI to anyone, I guess, even staff or members. We got a Data Scout question here. Does Data Scout keep your data safe, as an example, as compared to ChatGPT? I guess, James, that would be for you.
That's a great question. Yes, so the enterprise version specifically is designed for that. And what happens there is you have what's called a data lake, and then there's a large language model that's interacting with that. That's a private model. So we're not sending the data out to ChatGPT. Nightly, your data will get updated in this data lake. So it's almost like data warehousing, where you have a sort of yesterday's data. It's refreshed nightly. And you can also decide what data gets sent there, because all of the settings for that data essentially are all IQA driven. So you can decide exactly what member data gets shared and change your mind and add more or remove some whenever you like. It's all under your control. Yeah.
And that's their data lake. That's not Data Scout's data lake, right? So they can have their own data lake that they
each client has their own data lake. That's right. Yeah. Data Scout, we manage that for you, but everybody has their own instance. Exactly.
All siloed. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you, James. I feel we could keep going for another hour, but we are at the end of our first ever webinar. Thank you everyone for joining. We're going to make this a series. We're looking for other people from not-for-profits to come and share their stories. So please reach out if that's you. Thank you very much to all our speakers and Riley and CJ behind the scenes for making all this happen. And yeah, this is great. Really enjoyed meeting with all of you.
Thanks everyone. Really enjoyed it.
Have a good one.
Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.